Sure. Joshua, did you get sound? I have a video that Emma put together of our trip. If he doesn't have sound, I'm just going to push play at the same time. Did you get sound? Yes. We can watch this for a minute.
Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลาแห่งความรัก Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลาแห่งความรักบ่อยครั้งที่เรามัวกลุ้มใจทิ้งให้ชีวิตหม่นหมองเฝ้ามองมีใครบ้างไหมที่คอยเข้าใจข่าวดีวันนี้พระเจ้าให้สายใยใจเราผูกพันพระเยซูบังเกิดในร่างยา Christmas is a time Christmas is a time Christmas is a time to love Christmas is a time Christmas is a time Christmas is a time to love We often start to worry and people get upset if things don't all go right on Christmas Day What we should remember in all the push and shove is Christmas is the time to love Christmas is the time Christmas is the time Christmas is the time to love Christmas is the time Christmas is the time Christmas is the time to love Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลาแห่งความรัก Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลา Christmas เป็นเวลาแห่งความรัก
Hey, oh, there we go. Okay, so as you can see, we had a pretty good event. As usual, the Seeyas don't travel easily. We had originally 11-hour layover in Korea, and we got on the plane. Actually, if you ever need to have an 11-hour layover, I suggest the Incheon airport in Korea. It is amazing. It had all this free stuff for us to do, like all these cultural immersion things that were all free. The kids, we made these bracelets with our names in Korean. They had people playing instruments for free, and you could dress up in native costumes and take pictures. Like, it was amazing. It was a fun 11 hours. Then I got everybody on the plane, and we're heading to Thailand, and I fall asleep because I couldn't sleep for the 11 hours because I had to make sure everyone was doing what they were supposed to be doing and not getting things stolen. So we get to the airplane, I got everyone in, and I said, okay, and I lay down and I fell asleep. Next thing I know, Emma's waking me up, Mom, we gotta get off the plane. I'm like, well, that was a quick trip to Thailand. She's like, no, Mom, we haven't even left Korea yet. We sat for 2.5 hours in the plane while I slept because something was wrong with the airplane and they couldn't get it fixed. So they made us get all off and wait for a new plane to come. But all these Koreans were like flipping, like they were yelling and screaming at them. And I'm like, you know what, people, chill out. I'm glad they found out while we were on the ground and not midair that the airplane was faulty. So we had an extra 5 more hours in the airport, and they gave us these nice certificates for everybody to get a free meal before we take off, but it was in the middle of the night and nothing was open. I'm like, what are these for? But nonetheless, we finally got to Thailand. It was like 8.5 hours later than we were supposed to, so it was rush hour. So it kind of put everything back, but it was really good when we got there. My sister-in-law met us, and our van driver met us, and the two of them stayed with us pretty much the entire trip. So it was really good. And I don't know if you knew this, but Emma absolutely did not want to go to Thailand. I made her go. I said, you're under 19, you're 18, she's 19 now, but you're under my house, you're going with me one last time. And the goal was because we were going to change our property from Bay's name to her name in case anything ever happens. So I said, you have to go. I can't do it, we have to be there. We get there and they wouldn't let her do it. She has to be 20. I said, guess what, you got to come back again. She's like, no. But what was really good was because my sister-in-law was with us the entire time, she speaks fluent English. And my nephew was with us, he speaks fluent English. Emma was actually able to have some healing that she needed. Like, she really resented my husband's family because they look at you and they say you're fat. And they try to fix you. And so the last time we were there before we left, it was all, Emma, you shouldn't eat this. Emma, you shouldn't do that. Emma, so she really did not want to go. She's, I don't want to hear how fat I am. I know I am not a toothpick. And she just really did not want to go. And I'm like, just do like I do and tell them, hey, I'm not as big as an elephant yet, so we're good. But she gets really offended. So it was a good time for them because they were able to have healing. I talked to my sister-in-law ahead of time and said, look, don't. If you say anything, you will be cut off from my family for the rest of your life. I'm just letting you know because you're not hurting them anymore. And it was a completely different environment, like completely healing. It was a really good time. Now, my mother-in-law, she's just her. At one point, she's like, Emma, you can stay in Thailand and live with me forever, and I'll give you land. And Dave's up front going, Mom, shut up, you're not helping. Stop talking, you're not helping. She's like, no, I'm not staying with you, Grandma. Because my mother-in-law recently decided, the church that's in the village that she's at, the pastor embezzled money, and so she has decided to go back and follow evil spirits. She decided that she didn't want God anymore. So it was we decided we weren't staying in her house then because she has, if you go into her house now, she's got a shelf of ancestor worship in her house. And I just said, no, we're not staying at your house. We're not coming and putting ourselves in that. We'll visit you, but we are not entering into that environment. And you could really tell just being with her, the spirit was completely different. And it was a hard trip with her. But my sister-in-law again, she stayed with us the whole time and helped. And we went to the village to our to where we have our nonprofit, and you guys will find this funny. The pastor that's staying in our place and taking care of us, our property and ministry, decided the school was a good house. So he lives in the school now instead of the house. He said our house was too big, and they felt odd with 3 people in this huge house. So they live in the little school building and use the house as the school now. But they really did a lot of improvements. I mean, Emma looked at the house and said, Mom, when I left, it was peach. Why is it blue? Because this church in Bangkok has taken on our ministry as part of their outreach. And so they keep sending teams up to refurbish. And they've remodeled our whole bathroom. We had a nice new bathroom. And they did a lot of improvements. We now have a water filtering system. And we actually have water that comes to the house now. I told them, I said, y'all don't know what it's like. I had to go every week to the river, fill up buckets of water into the back of my pickup truck, take them back to the house, fill up the tanks so that we would have water for a week. And that water that I was using was stuff that people were pooping and peeing up the river. So, I mean, you guys do not know how nice you have it. Because they're like, the water heater broke the week before we came, and they're like, do you want us to get it fixed before you come? And I said to Base, if we never had a water heater, I don't know what they're all excited about, but we just boiled water in a kettle and poured it in a bucket with the cold water and splashed ourselves. But they decided they couldn't live without the water heater, so they fixed it for us. But it was neat. The van driver was telling me the last day that the thing that encouraged him most was as he took me around through the town and to the villages and stuff, everywhere we came, I hop out of the van and everyone's running, it's Mama Michelle, she's back. And he goes, I've taken the people that are taking care of your ministry to the market, and nobody made that reaction to them. They get out and it's just like, whatever. He goes, but you come out and the whole market just stops and everyone comes running. And I said, that's because we invested in them. And that was one of the things I want you to pray for with us. The team that's there now, I was surprised. The first day we got there, they all drank my hot chocolate. So there was none left for me for breakfast. They said, but there's coffee. Americans like coffee. I said, most. This one doesn't drink coffee. So I said, that's okay. I'll go in the village. There's a little store that sells stuff. I'll go buy a hot chocolate packet from them. And the lady's like, oh, don't do that. We'll drive you down to the market. And I said, why? I can walk like 50 feet and get it for $5 just the same as down there. Oh, she says, I don't know, I just don't go out there. And I'm looking at her thinking, you've lived here for 2 years and you've never gone to that little store. Like, I just pray because they really need to invest in the people. Like, they're there, they're invested. They go out, like you saw the pictures, they're visiting the disabled people for us, and they're doing their job, but they're not sharing their life, if that makes sense. Like, our family's very transparent. You can come at any point in time in our house and whatever, and we're out with you, whatever. We go visit people. They give us their water that came from the creek that we're pooping and peeing in or whatever. We drink it all. We never, we prayed for God's protection against any illnesses, and we just went in faith. And these people, they have this mentality. I think it's probably because they're from Bangkok. They have this mentality, it's them and us. And their work can only go so far when you have that mentality, right, Pastor? If you're going to keep yourself segregated from them as us here and them there, you're never going to have the breakthrough that they could have and they could see. But that was one of the prayer requests. But then it was neat, the Christmas outreach, we made 100 bags because we have like 200 and some disabled people in our area. So we raised enough for 300, but we knew there's no way 300 were coming. So we shot maybe 100. We had 70 come, and then with their families, it was 100 and some people all together in the morning. But the bags, we were able to give them their warm blanket, a coat, lots of food things, a bag of rice. What else did they get? Oh, they even had money in there too. A church donated money, and so we just split it up and gave. Like, they were so excited to get their bags. But for me, the most exciting thing was to see the people. Like, the kids that I saw and worked with when we had the school, they were 10, 11. Now they're 20. They're married and they have children. And it was so encouraging for me because I remember their parents bringing them to us and saying, why do we have this? Like, what future does this kid have? This kid can't do anything. And I kept throwing into them, there's a purpose. There's a purpose for your kid. There's a purpose. There's a reason. Bay doesn't walk, but there's a reason. Like, it doesn't mean they have any less value. And to be able to see these kids married, having children, working, I was so happy. It did my heart so good. And I was crying a lot of times when I was meeting them. I was just like, the one little boy, Pichai, that was his name. We had gotten walkers and crutches for him. He was too scared to walk. Like, we were doing that video. This TV show came and videoed me in Thailand, and he was one of the stars of the show, and we're trying to get him to walk, and he just would not walk. He was so scared. He was walking with a walker. I was just crying. I'm like, oh, you got over your fear? And he goes, thank you for not giving up on me, he said. And it just touched my heart because we go and we want to invest God in them, and we do. But just to see them to realize the worth that they had it touched my heart. And then we shared the gospel. The kids at my school, I teach Blair County Christian, I teach art. We made the salvation bracelets, the Kellers, and so we gave them out. The kids were so excited to get those things. But we were able to share the gospel, and we had, I want to see, was it 13, if I remember correctly? Let me see here, if I can find it. Yeah, 13 people accepted Christ, and then 6 other people came and asked for special prayer. And for me, that was impressive, because considering that the outreach has been kind of cold since we left, just for them to know and hear the gospel and to be able to respond to it. Pray, because not everyone comes from our village, and we did have pastors from all the villages there, so they are supposed to be doing follow-up and discipleship of these believers. But pray for that. We also had an evangelist come. He comes up quite often, I guess, too. And he did this, like the sermon or whatever, and it was really, really well received. And then we got to see Amy's parents. That was another big thing we wanted to do, was for her to see her mom and dad. And the first day we arrived, her mom showed up at my sister-in-law's house, surprised. And Amy was just crying, and I was mad at Bay because he made me spend the whole time translating. Like, we're visiting family. I don't speak Lisu, and she speaks very little Thai and no English. But he left me struggle for 2 hours to translate between Amy and her mom. And I'm like, you could have come over and traded off, because we were right in the middle of supper too. So he sat and ate and then carried on conversations with everybody. And my food got cold, and now everything got eaten. So till she left, I was like, no food. And I had to struggle for 2 hours. Thanks a lot, dear. But Amy loved it. Like, you could just see, she was just smiling, she beaming. She was so happy. Her one brother came, and her niece, she was holding the baby, and she just thought it was everything. It was just so exciting. And then when we got to the village, well, actually, before we even went up to the village, I went to withdraw her disability money because Thailand gives them $30 a month for disability. And so I had told her, when we get there, your money is your money. Like, you'll get to spend it and do whatever you want. So she'd planned to, while we were in the city, buy gifts to take up home. Well, we went to get the money, and I said, come back. I said, Amy, I don't know what happened, but your money's all gone. There's nothing in that bank account. She's like, what? I don't know. But fortunately, Potato, I don't know if you guys remember Potato, his sister works in the office that looks after disability. So we called her and found out that somebody helped her father, who is no longer her father and has no parental rights with this child, write a letter and tell them she was concerned. He was concerned about his daughter who was stolen and taken out of the country, and could her money be put into his account so that he could keep it safe for her. I'm like, what? So when we got there, that's the first thing we did when we got to the village, was we went and we were like, this is not happening. We found out it was total corruption, and luckily the governor of our area is new, and he didn't want his reputation tarnished, because I told him, this is Mama Bear here, and you are not taking advantage of my child. And Bay told them, if we don't have that money back in her account by tomorrow morning, we're pressing charges. The next morning, well, first we said we need to talk to her dad to find out what's going on. I said, well, I want to let you know, her dad does not read or write Thai. I know, because I helped him read or write Thai when I was here. Somebody helped him do all this. And the somebody who did it, which is really sad, was one of the board members of our nonprofit that's embezzled the money the last time we were there. He took 200,000 baht from our account. So we had given him 30 days to get it back, and he did it. But they just assumed that we were leaving to America and we'd never be back again. So he helped, and he works in that office, actually. So he helped the father do this whole big thing to steal Amy's money. So his boss, he's sitting there beside his boss, and he's just like, well, I didn't know you adopted her. And I just looked at him, I said, don't even sit right there in front of me and lie. You were part of our nonprofit. You were president of our accounts. I said, this isn't the first time you've taken money from us either. Do you want me to tell your boss about the last time? And he just looked, and his boss is like, what? And I'm like, just letting you know, you don't have what you think you have right there. I'm not throwing anything else out, because we told him if he gave it back in 30 days, we'd be okay. But I'm just letting you know. Keep a tight rein on that one. The next morning, the governor came, and we had Amy's money back. But Amy was just upset, like really upset. She just couldn't understand how her birth father could do that. She said, how could my dad do that to me? How could my dad take my money? And we were having devotions in the morning, and the devotion was about forgiving those who hurt you. And she said to me in the morning, well, Mom, if my dad gives me some of my money back and apologizes for stealing it and says he won't steal anymore, I can forgive him. And I said, well, God will be very happy about that. And so when he brought it back, he didn't bring 100%. It was like 70-some%. But I mean, it was a lot more than I expected. I actually think the governor gave him the money. I know he didn't have that sitting around. But she was able to forgive him. And it was a good example, too, for all the people that were there working with us. We had like 30 workers from Thailand, from Bangkok, that were there. And that none of them could believe that she was so forgiving. And I said, well, that's what God taught us, to forgive. And sometimes we have to turn the other cheek and get slapped again, but that's what God tells us. And so it was neat that Amy got to be that forgiving. And she saw her dad, and she was so happy to see her dad, and she was hugging her dad, and she saw her nephew, but she didn't get to see her one brother because he was sick, and I wouldn't let him come. He had the flu, and I said, nope, we don't need that. So that was a good time for Amy. That was one of the goals of the trip, was for her to see her birth family again. And then her mom met us at the airport again before we flew out. And she just kept crying and hugging Amy and hugging Emma and I, and she just kept saying, I'm so thankful for you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't see my daughter today. And I was like, well, you could if she was still with her dad. And she's like, no, if she was still with her dad, she'd be dead. I'm glad she's with you, because I could see my daughter. I never thought I'd ever see my daughter be a young woman and happy, and I thank you so much. And it was neat, because I just kept telling her, you keep saying we're blessing her, and she's a blessing. I said, I have to tell you, that kid is a blessing to everyone she meets. Is a blessing to us to be her parents. But everyone that meets her, I said, she's an encouragement. Just her smile and her personality, she's a blessing to everyone. And so it was a neat trip in that. And then the pastor that takes care of our stuff, he has our truck, and so he travels up and down. So what he did was he took us to his house, which is south of Bangkok, and then for the last 4 days we spent at the beach with my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law from Germany, and then nephew and our family. We were all down there. And so he took the truck and went back up to the mountains, which it's 12 hours from Bangkok to Chiang Mai, and then another 4 hours to our village. So 16 hours he drove so that he could go with them in the truck and deliver the rest of these bags to these handicapped people for the next couple weeks. So I'm just thankful we do have some workers that are very dedicated, but the problem with him is his church is outside of Bangkok. It's not up there, so he's not able to invest. So I just really want us to pray that the pastor, I can't even remember what his name is, I'm so sorry, the pastor that's in our village, that he would break down the walls and just be able to be more transparent with the people. And that way he could be more of a dynamic influence for Christ. But we're thankful for the church and for the support. I was totally blown away by the amount of support that we got to go. Like, I set the goal at 300 bags thinking we would never hit 300 bags. I figure if you set it high, then you're not disappointed because you'll still have enough. We hit 300, 500. I think we could have got 500 bags if we wanted to. It was just, like, God over and abundantly blessed this trip. And so I knew something big was going to happen. And it did. We got some people that are now going to spend eternity in heaven. And seeds were planted for other people, and we were able to see. It was just, for me, the trip was just amazing to be able to see the fruit of that labor that we stressed and the kids that we invested in, to see them, the potential that we told them they have, seeing them living it. It was just, for me, that was just amazing. I just appreciated it. And thank you guys for that. And that's all. If you come on Saturday, like the pastor said, you'll get to hear more in-depth stories of life-changing stories and things. We'll have more specific details and stuff, but that's just a glimmer to whet your appetite.